There's a certain kind of criminal that doesn't just commit crime. They orchestrate it. They engineer it. They build it like a symphony, one step ahead of law enforcement, society. We're not talking about ordinary criminals. We're talking about masterminds, people who used brilliance, calculation, and strategy, not just brute force or recklessness, to pull off some of the most legendary crimes in history. And while we don't glorify crime, we study how minds like this worked, because in their methods, there are lessons on intelligence, systems, human behavior, and even where pride and power go too far. Let's explore 5 real-life criminal masterminds who shook the world with their genius and their audacity. 1. Frank Abagnale, the Great Imposter. At just 16 years old, Frank Abagnale was already forging checks like a professional, impersonated an airline pilot, flown over 1 million miles for free, cashed over $2.5 million in fraudulent checks, pretended to be a doctor, lawyer, and college professor. He never used violence, just charm, confidence, and an insane understanding of human psychology. Frank understood one thing most people never learn. People trust uniforms, titles, confidence. He forged degrees, designed fake identities, and beat the system again and again. Eventually, the FBI caught him. But guess what? They were so impressed, they hired him to help catch other fraudsters. From criminal to government asset. That's mastermind level. 2. Leonardo Notarbartolo, the Belgian diamond heist. In 2003, over $100 million in diamonds, gold, and cash disappeared from a vault in Antwerp, Belgium. It was the most secure vault in Europe. 10 layers of security, infrared heat detectors, magnetic fields, motion sensors, seismic detectors, a steel vault door. But Leonardo Notarbartolo and his crew, they beat all of it. They rented office space in the building for 2 years beforehand, just to study patterns, routines, and weaknesses. They installed hidden cameras, rehearsed every move, used fake keys, custom tools, and stealth like you've never seen. No alarms went off, no guards caught them. And to this day, the diamonds were never recovered. A $100 million heist, gone without a trace. And the mastermind? He served some time, got out, and never revealed where the loot went. 3. Paul LaRue, the tech genius turned narco kingpin. Paul LaRue started as a software developer. He created encryption software used globally. He looked like a nerdy tech guy. But behind the scenes, he ran a global criminal empire. Online pharmacies, illegal arms trafficking, money laundering, even murders. He used servers, digital encryption, shell companies, and offshore accounts to hide everything. He built it like a Silicon Valley startup, only it was criminal to the core. The DEA finally caught him. And just like Abagnale, they used him to take down his own empire. But here's the scary part. He created the system from the shadows without ever stepping into the street. Brains, not bullets. 4. Victor Lustig, the man who sold the Eiffel Tower. In 1925, Victor Lustig pulled off one of the boldest scams in history. He sold the Eiffel Tower to a scrap metal dealer. Yes, he convinced someone to buy the Eiffel Tower. He posed as a government official, forged documents, held a fake meeting with multiple bidders, like a real government auction. One buyer thought he scored big and paid a fortune. When he realized it was a scam, he was too embarrassed to report it. And Lustig? He did it again, with another buyer. Victor wasn't just a scammer, he was a master of psychology. He understood shame, ego, and greed, and he used those to control people better than any weapon. That's mental warfare. 5. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Art Thieves, March 18, 1990, Boston. 2 men dressed as police officers walked into the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. They tied up the guards and walked out with 13 pieces of priceless art, worth over $500 million. No alarms, no suspects, no recovered artwork. To this day, it's the largest unsolved art theft in history. It was clear the thieves knew the museum's layout, security weaknesses, and routines. Inside job? Maybe. Criminal masterminds? Absolutely. And here's the kicker. The museum still has empty frames hanging, waiting for the art to return, like ghosts haunting the walls. A perfect crime. That remains a mystery. So what do all these minds have in common? It's not violence, it's not chaos, it's not even desperation. It's intelligence, vision, planning, and an understanding of how the world works, and how to bend it. But here's the truth. Brilliance without conscience leads to destruction. Some of these men were caught. Some vanished. Some flipped and worked for the government. Some we may never know the full truth about. But their stories reveal something powerful. The mind is the most dangerous weapon on Earth, and how you use it determines whether you build something legendary or leave behind a trail of devastation. Today we ask, why is crime wrong in God's eyes? What does heaven think of our actions? How does the Creator feel when His creation turns against itself? Let's go deeper than the law. Let's talk about the spiritual impact of crime and why God calls us higher. Let's start with definitions. Crime is a violation of man's law, but sin is a violation of God's law. Not every sin is a crime in this world, and not every crime is considered sin by man's standards. But God sees the heart. You can break no laws and still break God's heart. You can go to prison and still be forgiven in heaven. But make no mistake, God sees it all. And in His eyes, crime isn't just about the act. It's about the intention, the damage, the consequence. When someone commits a crime, whether it's theft, violence, lies, or deceit, it doesn't just hurt the victim, it grieves the Spirit of God. Because every person, the liar and the lied to, the murderer and the murdered, are made in His image. So when we harm each other, we dishonor the one who made us. We devalue life. We reject His command to love. We mock His design for justice, peace, and unity. Crime doesn't just break laws, it breaks hearts, especially the heart of God. Jesus was once asked, "What's the greatest commandment?" He replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and love your neighbor as yourself." Every command, every instruction, every boundary God gave us comes back to love. So when you steal, you're not loving your neighbor. When you kill, you're not loving your neighbor. When you lie, cheat, or destroy, you are not reflecting the heart of God. That's why crime is wrong in His eyes, because it violates love. At the root of every crime is rebellion. Not just rebellion against society, but against God. Satan's fall came from rebellion. He refused to submit. He wanted to do things his way. He thought he knew better. When we live outside of God's law, when we justify crime because of pain, poverty, revenge, or pride, we step into the same spirit of rebellion. And that spirit leads to destruction. Not just external, but internal. Because forgiveness and justice are not enemies, they're partners. God's justice isn't just about punishment. It's about correction, about redemption, about calling us back to Him. Crime leads to chaos. It breaks families. It destroys trust. It ruins futures. Let's acknowledge the truth. Crime is often born from brokenness, poverty, abuse, injustice, neglect. People don't always choose evil. Sometimes they choose survival. But God's heart breaks for both the criminal and the victim. He doesn't excuse the behavior, but He seeks to heal the root. Jesus came for the broken, the thief, the prostitute, the tax collector, not to keep them in crime, but to pull them out of it. Because the gospel isn't about leaving you where you are. It's about transforming who you are. No matter what you've done, listen to me. You are not too far gone. Moses killed a man, and God still used him. Paul persecuted Christians, and God still called him. David committed murder and adultery, and God still forgave him. Why? Because repentance opens the door to redemption. God doesn't want revenge, He wants restoration, but you have to turn back. We live in a world where crime is normalized, where sin is glamorized, where wrong is called right. But you, child of God, are set apart. You were not called to blend in. You were called to shine, to walk in integrity, to choose truth, to be an example of what righteousness looks like. Even if no one's watching, God sees and He honors obedience. Crime is wrong in God's eyes. Not because He's angry, but because He's loving. Because He wants more for us. Because He made us for better. God sees what crime does to the soul, to the family, to the future. And His heart? It aches. But it also hopes. Hopes you'll choose truth. Hopes you'll choose peace. Hopes you'll come home. Today, let go of what breaks His heart and run toward what heals yours. That's where freedom is. That's where purpose is. That's where God is. Thank you for listening. And remember, just because the world says it's okay, doesn't mean heaven does. Choose righteousness. Choose peace. Choose love. Because God already chose you.
We are all trying to be the best versions of ourselves, and I want to show you the changes that can be made in this world. Change that will have ripple effects and encourage people to see the beauty in life. To help me, help others in the most amazing ways I can. I have a store linked in the description where you can buy things for yourself, or what I would encourage is to buy a gift for someone else. Show the people in your life that you care and have their best interests at heart. Also, for the best contributions at the moment to the channel on helping and changing lives, is to donate to our GoFundMe linked in the description. No matter how far we go, the change will be felt. I'm here giving you a first-person perspective of the power of change for the better. God is within us all, and I want to bring the power to you the best way I can.